Well, with Sam Haynes, the CYC Vice Commodore and the most recent winner of the Rolex Sydney Hobart race. We'll get to that in a moment, Sam, but what's the Sam Haynes story? Where did sailing become part of your life?
Yeah, well, look, I wasn't really a sort of junior competitive sailor or anything like that, but we had various little boats over in Western Australia because I'm from Perth, sailed on the Swan River, and yeah, I just enjoyed it a lot. Had a bit of a connection to the AC back in because I lived in Fremantle. We had some friends which were involved in that, like the Longleys, Fitzhardings. So there was this sort of connection, and Prio being a small place, you know, we were intimately involved in the race, I suppose. Just as the '93 campaign, and then sorry, '83. I keep on saying,
yes.
and then yeah, and then my final year of university, and left uni in '86, and was in Freo for the defence, and yeah, kind of got a whirlwind of sailing activity around the place. But mainly I was just sailing socially, did a little bit of sailing at Fremantle Sailing Club on keelboats, and then came to Sydney through various different reasons, and I bought a Cavalier 35 from Ian Box way back, and that's where I first started doing some ocean racing. I did some Pittwater Coffs type races. I did a few of those in that. Then I moved into a Sydney 39 CR, which was Nigel Holman, his estate. He'd passed away, unfortunately. I bought that boat, and I became connected with quite a few people. It was just sort of, you know, in the ocean racing scene.
And were you racing out of the CYC then, in those races, early days?
Yeah, so the Cavalier 35 came here, and I got that boat onto this marina and became a club member back then. And then the Sydney 39, all called Celestial. Ian Box's Cavalier was called that, and I've just kept the name ever since.
Okay. And all the while you were a vet and running building a big practice, I guess?
Yeah, the veterinary practice sort of gradually grew through various reasons. I established a few practices, and then also purchased some, came into partnerships in some, so that sort of was always bubbling along as a business. Took up a lot of my time, still does. But yeah, veterinary, you know, I guess I'm managing the business as well as I'm still working actually on the front line. I do a lot of surgery, so if your dog's knee gets a reconstruction at Sydney Animal Hospitals, then it's probably myself or one of my colleagues doing it.
And you offer mates rates for CYC members?
I give a little bit of a discount to some people under select particular circumstances.
Right, I'll be in touch. Okay, so Sam, when did you did a lot of coastal races, as you said, the shorter races. When did the Hobart sort of get on the horizon for you, the Hobart race?
Yeah, I think when we had the Sydney 39, when I had that boat, we actually won a Bird Island race in that boat. And we were planning on doing a Hobart that year on it, but then I got interested in this Rogers 46, so we didn't continue in that Blue Water Point score. We got the Rogers 46 and brought that up to Hobart speed.
And where did you acquire that from?
That was an old Shogun, ex-Shogun, and it was down in Geelong at the time. So yeah, I just purchased it from a guy called Chook Fowler, and yeah, he actually took the Sydney 39. We did a trade, ended up with the Rogers 46, which is a really great boat.
Were you building up a crew as such? Did you have a core base of crew that you took from the smaller boat into the larger boat?
Yeah, I had a good continuity of crew. Guys like Ben DaCosta sailed with me all the way through. Colin Janes, Scott Francis. There was quite a few people which were moved through all the boats, and kept the whole program, going together. And then that boat, the Rogers 46, we actually did quite a lot of mods to that boat and started building it into a much better yacht. Didn't have a very good start. We had a couple of Hobarts. We actually didn't even make it in that boat.
I think your first one was 2010.
Yeah.
I think from memory. Yeah.
And then we actually came third though after, I think it was in our third attempt in that boat. Got third place, and we also ended up winning the Blue Water Point score that year as well.
So it was a pretty good boat, obviously.
Yeah, it was. It became a really good boat. We won a Port Stephens in it as well, IRC regatta. But when it first came into my hands, it did need a lot of things done to it. It was a big wake-up call as to what you need to do to get a Grand Prix boat up and running.
And what did you do? What sort of major work did you do?
Yeah, it was a pin top main on those boats, so we went to a square top, so we had quite a lot of rig modification to do that, and deck hardware and so forth. It also had a retractable bowsprit, which was just leaked crazy. So much water came in through that thing. So that was made into a fixed sprit. The hull itself needed quite a lot of work to get that to be fair. It had a lot of issues in its manufacture, which is quite common with carbon boats, I think. So that was something else, which was quite a big project just to get the boat nice underneath. Yeah.
But to get a third in the Hobart race, I mean, a lot of people try to get places. It must have been a big thrill at the time to be a third on the podium.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was just it was back in the day when the prize giving was down at the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, and we were sort of in those rooms down there with all the trophies, and everyone crowded in, and lots of friends and family down there, and it was an awesome experience. It was
I think
great.
That's the year Victoire won it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Victoire year. Yeah.
So where did we go from the Rogers 46? Did you continue with that for a while?
I think I did 4 Hobarts in that boat. We did 4 campaigns, and then Rupert Henry was selling his TP52, which was one of the what now, and that boat I decided let's take a step up and buy that, and again another boat which needed lots of things done to it, but TP52, great platform, and that took me into that next step up. And
how long did you race that TP52 for?
I think we did 4 Hobarts in that one as well. Slightly vague there. It was definitely at least 4. We had some good results and so forth in it. There was one year where it raced when I wasn't on board because I was injured. So maybe, but anyway, it's certainly a really good boat, that particular one. Now it's Smuggler.
Yes, yeah. And again, the crew, I mean, a bit of continuity there with the crew, or did you change a fair bit?
No, there was still a lot of continuity in the crew. In fact, some of the people that are on my crew now were sailing on the boat back then, like Lindsay Steed, for instance. There was still reasonably good consistency with who was on board and who was still just a Celestial type sailor. But some new people coming through as well. Adam Minter, for instance, he sort of joined us for those races. So
you took another step and got another TP52.
Yeah.
What you thought you could do better with another boat? Obviously you did to get it, I guess. It's a big question, but why the next step?
It was just getting a more modern boat. I liked the 2011 type era of TP52s for offshore. Is this a little bit more advanced than the sort of 2006 TP52.
Now this is the boat you've got now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was originally BCom, then it moved to New Zealand, and then Chris Dare had it as Ambition for a period of time, and then I bought it off Chris Dare.
And it's a dual Rolex design.
Yeah. JV 2011, built by McConaughey. It just had some really nice features as well. It's got a really good rig on it. It's nice southern spars set up. But again, it's another boat that I've spent a lot of money and we've done a lot of work to develop. Did a lot of work to the rig. We've done a lot of work to, we put a new keel on it. We've done some modifications underwater, for its fin and its bulb, rudder, you name it, things like that.
And was that liaising with the dual Rolex office the whole time?
Yeah, JV have been really involved in it. So they've been really, involved in this boat ever since it was all for one. So it's gone through a lot of, advice. But also Southern Spars, Rig Pro, they've been very helpful as well, just keeping the boats tuned and working with North Sails. So, you sort of all the aspects of advice and management of the boat have been coordinated by the top level, in my view anyway.
Yeah. So you slowly built that program up, and I guess, the boat became fairly successful and then very successful.
Yeah.
Did you find that the difference between the previous TP and the current one much different?
Yeah. This one was quite a hard boat to sail. Like it felt harder to keep the boat in a groove, harder to sail than the previous TP52. We often were struggling with it to hold lanes, to hold height. We really had to learn how to tune the boat properly and sail it properly for it to perform. It wasn't an easy transition. I thought it'd be a lot easier. But rewarding obviously as well, because the boat's got a very strong corner of of a race to fight, which is downwind, reaching. It's reasonably good in some upwind conditions, but we've improved a lot of those things now. So now the boat's actually much more of an all-rounder, as you can see. So 21 Hobart, hard upwind race. The boat held up well. We didn't have breakages. The boat performed really well in that sense, but also in an upwind race, which is not its strong suit, the boat did really well.
Well, let's talk about that race. I mean, it got publicity for perhaps a lot of reasons. Some may be wrong, some may be right. But reflecting now, you're provisionally first, and then you got relegated to second. How do you reflect now on that whole situation of that race?
Yeah, look, it'd be nice to say, oh, we've moved on because of 2022, and it's easy to put that behind you. But I don't think it was. I look back at it and think it was an incredibly ugly period of time. I think a lot of things which happened then, extremely unfortunate, and didn't. I don't think it was really very good for the sport. And also, I felt, as I still kind of feel, that we didn't really have a chance. We didn't even know what we were up against until it was all sort of like it was all over, and there's nothing you can do. So yeah, it was very difficult for a lot of people, obviously particularly me, but there's a lot of people involved in that got hurt. I've as you know, been on the sailing committee for a long time here, and I'm very mindful of the rules and so forth, and I don't want to see boats not be consistent with the rules and the sailing instructions and so forth. But even with all of that, I felt that last year, that 2021 year was a circumstance which really shouldn't have happened that way.
Well, we move on, and I guess, it made you, keener, if that's the word, to do better and look for 2022. So how did your preparation go for the 22 race? I mean, you changed a bit of the crew and just got more determined, I guess.
Yeah, so we had a couple of really good crew additions. I suppose like you say, more determined. So, I mean, the 2022 race did start with the 21 result, but I actually was thinking, okay, look, maybe I'm not going to keep on going. I'm not really interested in the sport as much as I thought I would be. I had other things going on with J70. But then when I did decide to recommit, I really wanted to make sure we did as good a job as possible. I wanted to get the right people on board the boat. So yeah, Jack McCartney, who was sailing with me for a while, obviously did 21, pulled together a really good squad. I know Rob Greenhouse really well, so he's a friend, and he agreed to come. That was a big step forward. His planning and campaigning skills are, as good as his sailing skills. So he really took the program to another step forward. And we focused on lots of different things, but
Well, let's talk about that, because people who have been watching this will want to try and win a Hobart race. When did your preparation start for, say, the 22 race, the one that you won? Does it start in January that year, or how did you build up to the race?
Well, we probably were mainly licking wounds in January, but when we decided to do the Brisbane Gladstone race, that was a big, that was committing to offshore racing. And the race, which we're doing the Brisbane Gladstone this year, which is only 10 days away or so, that race helped set us up a lot for the 2022 Hobart because of the hard downwind running conditions that you can get in the B to G, and that also helped us get some good crew to come on the boat, to get put a crew together to start that process. So that race, Rob Greenhouse wasn't actually on the boat for that race, but we had a really, high level crew, a lot of really good guys on board there. You had like Luke Parkinson, Wendy Harmer, people like that. Drove the boat extremely hard, kept the thing lit the whole way, and then got confidence in the platform downwind in hard running. So that just gave us, I guess, a nice place to start off an ocean campaign, offshore racing. Again, in the boat, getting back into it. And, it exposed a lot of weaknesses as well, which we then took to work on. So things like just even the bilge pumps, the waterproofing of the boat, which are things which you'd expect a boat to be, there's already done a couple of Hobarts and everything to have going well, but there was always incremental improvements, just little steps forward. And everything, counted to make the boat a faster boat for a Hobart race. And for me, we love the Blue Water point score. We do all the races involved in that. They're definitely very important in lead up. They're really important in lead up. There's so many things which those races bring out, different ways of sailing, different modes. And the crew particularly, but it's all aiming at Boxing Day for us. So the other thing, we really worked on trying to get a good crew together, and then when we did have the crew, we trained as a crew. So we did as many races together as we could, but we also did training sessions together, particularly doing things to make sure our navigation, our polars, our sail crossovers, the sails that we take, all those layers of data that you need.
Yeah. And so take us into the race. Obviously you get the weather early out from the race, 4 or 5 days out. It starts to formulate into a plan.
Yeah.
What was your plan? Did you...
Yes, we had a couple of meteorologists working with us to help plan the race. We had Roger Badham, of course, which a lot of people do. We also had Chris Bedford.
Chris Bedford, yeah.
He was probably our main source of information. So we had sessions with him, which we actually started quite far out from the race. I think a week out from the race, we had a daily session with him, obviously just to look at how the weather was evolving, and mainly oceanography as well. He did a lot of help, a lot of info on current, which was important in this race. So we started to sort of plan that and get an idea about what sails would be on the boat, and how we were going to manage the actual course as it evolved. And what it's like, you've done so many of these races, one day it's like, oh my God, this front's going to be coming through on the second day, and it's going to, oh no, it's been delayed. When is it going to come through? Now, you always have all of that going on until you're virtually off the dock and you've got a weather forecast. So you just sort of like, hopefully it stays with this one.
Thank heavens we can go sailing now.
Yeah. A lot of prep with that. We did prep on food and things like that too. Housekeeping of the boat, who was going to do what role on board to keep the boat as.
And I guess looking at the weather a few days out, I think all the pundits agreed that it was going to be a TP52 race. And there was yourself in Celestial, Guaylo, Caro and Warrior One seemed to be the top 4 picks. Going into the race, I mean, obviously you kept an eye on them, but was it a case of, that you stayed with them, or you did your own thing, or how did you balance all that out?
Yeah, during the race, that's a good, interesting question, because we obviously were very close to those boats, and they were doing extremely well, and that meant that we knew we were too. But we did stick to our game plan as well. So I think if you look at the Green Cape, there's a sort of an angle where everyone comes in, and then everyone jibes at various different points there, for instance, and we picked where we wanted to jibe, and that's where we jibed, for instance, at that time. And Guaylo were the last one, I think, to change. And you could see then later, I think it was for instance, pretty sure it was Warrior 1, took another dig back in, and again, we were with the other three, and none of us covered them. They were probably coming back to join us. So we really just kept to our game plan the whole way down. But then again, also, we weren't hugely separated from the boats which were all going to finish well.
So, Sam, we're halfway to Hobart, and without throwing anyone under the bus, how accurate were the weather forecasters?
Yeah, they were pretty good. Going back and looking at they probably could have dug in a bit further before that jibe that I just mentioned, because it looked like some of the boats which did that got a better angle, got a bit of a shift, which we didn't foresee or didn't have planned. And then, yeah, the forecast wasn't too bad, but when we got down to the island, a lot of us overstood a little bit. We had to come in hot. And Guaylo came in nicely. Actually, they got a much better jibe angle in towards the island.
But it was a good, fresh, hard run, wasn't it?
Yeah, it got stronger and stronger. And it was, at the end, it was very hectic. You know, there was a lot of, the sea state was big. There was a lot of big waves, and the boats were ploughing into them. And you could see that from some of the injuries and so forth that happened. Yeah, the boat, our boat, as well, the other TP52s would have been totally lit up. We were racing really hard at that stage.
Did you do one bad roundup or jibe and you broke your top gaff batten?
No, that was different. The gaff batten, that actually happened quite a lot earlier in the race. That was changing from an A2 to an A4, and it's a fatal thing. A little bit of mistiming, and the kite halyard got over the top of the gaff batten. And so it was just pulled down and broke the batten as we'd pulled it down. Sort of very risky to pull that down over the back of a gaff batten. The normal things to get someone up, spike it off, do all this sort of thing. But the heat of the moment, that's what occurred. So that was actually, it didn't really matter too much, I don't think, until we got into the river and so on. I said to Rob, we're out of the race. I was like, this is disaster. He said, oh no, don't worry about it. Probably won't matter too much. And then he said, I sailed around half the Southern Ocean with broken gaff batten, and some race he'd done.
So
But we did tip in under an A4. Very much towards the coming back into the island. Before we peeled away from that, we were under the A4. Had quite a nasty broach. Destroyed the A4, which was taken on. Got that stowed away pretty quickly. Actually, went to the A6 and then continued under that.
So we're hard running, and then we get to Tasman, and with the computer systems the way they are, you knew where you were on handicap, and you knew what probably you had to do, where to finish with the other TP52s to get that job done. What were the nerves like from Tasman to the finish? I mean, it was fresh to frightening coming up the river. I remember seeing you come up the river.
Yeah.
It was really fresh then. But take us from Tasman to the finish.
Yeah, so I knew that we were certainly up the top, but I didn't dare ask. I was kind of like,
not again.
But then when we got to Cape Rowell, I said, how are we standing in this race? To Jack McCartney, he said, oh yeah, we're good. We're winning. We've got 20 minutes. And Guaylo at that stage actually had parked up underneath the headland. They'd parked a little bit under Tasman, and then they had also got in the lee of the Row. So we were closing in on them. But I knew the time we had was on Guaylo. And I was like, suddenly got really panicky. I was just like because we had quite a few sail changes and so forth going on. We had to go from a bro down, we had a J5 up, it was so windy. The reef was in, it was out, 2 reefs. And every shot was coming across the boat with, anything could happen.
And the broken batten, the mates will flogging away.
Flogging away, flapping. The river. So any error, those minutes would just burn. And I think we ended up burning half of it, just in, the tacking duel up the river. They did a lot better than us in that. Yeah.
So you got home and you knew you'd won the TP52 battle.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a wait then, or did you?
Yeah, there was a couple of waits. There was a wait we had the wait for Enterprise because they were, deservedly going to get some redress.
Yep.
We expected. It was hard to see them getting enough, but you just don't know. That's the thing. So that was reasonable amount of tension with that, and obviously it comes up in discussion the whole time when you're there. And then I think there was also a couple of boats which could, come through in the much lower rating sort of bands of boats that were worth keeping an eye on. But then they got the weather, the weather cut them off, and that was just
And once you knew, what do you think?
So we gathered because the Enterprise hearing was occurring, so we knew that there was going to be a result after that. So we all gathered down at the race village, picnic tables, and as soon as we got told by Arthur Lane, Arthur rang me and said, "It's done. You're the winners, undisputed champions. Congratulations!" And the champagne started popping. There's 20 bottles of it sprayed.
Well deserved. But I mean, you look back now. I mean, a first, second, and third in the Hobart race. It's you got the podium. It's a pretty proud effort. You must be. All of that.
No, I am very proud of it. Proud of my ocean racing, and look, we're going to go back into this year we're there again.
Gonna have another go.
Yeah,
good.
So we're working on the boat now for that particular for this year's event.
So you're doing the Coffs Harbour race. The boat's doing the Coffs Harbour race.
Yeah.
Very shortly. There's a couple of days' time, and then the Gladstone race, and then back into the program, I guess.
Yeah, Blue Water Point Score. Yeah. So the next thing will be the Southport. We're not able to do a lot of the TP52 Gold Cup races, so I'm not doing that series. We'll just keep the boat in offshore mode. I'm away for some of them to do with the J70 campaign.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the J70. You've recently into that for a couple of years. You've got a big campaign coming up this year, haven't you? A lot of regattas. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so following on from last year, I've got a boat in Europe as well as the one here. So we do some of the J70 regattas that are in Australia, obviously. I qualified for the Worlds, which are in Florida, later in the year, sort of in November. But on the way there, we're going to be doing, in June, there is the World Corinthians J70s. That's at Lake Garda, Riva de Garda. So I'm going there with a Corinthian team, Tom Grimes, Sam Abel and Lockie Pryor, who sail with me a lot, those guys. So it's a purely amateur one design event. And then we'll be doing J70 leading up to the Europeans, which are at Weymouth. We'll do the UK Nationals and then Weymouth, and that's in September, early September. And then go to America and do this World Championship.
So who looks after the dogs while you're away?
Yeah, luckily I've got a good team.
Right.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of people there that can do the work for me at work.
Well, let's take your sailing hat off and put on your club hat, as it were.
Yeah.
You've obviously put a lot of time and effort into the club. How do you see it tracking at the moment?
The club's doing really well. We've got a really great management team here. I think that there's been a lot of work put into organising the back end of the club, if you like. Probably, all really aiming to give the members their best value for their membership and their best experience at the club. But quite a lot of stuff's going on constantly in my time on the board that's, probably not overtly in front of the membership. But the members, we've got a good club here. We've got a lot of things happening, a lot of sailing's been going on. In my time, when I went through the sailing committee and then became chair, we had to look at the double-handed situation and brought that in. There was the Maxi Championship as well, another big event that we brought on. We had the World Youth Match Racing here as well. All the blue water events have been, they're constantly being reviewed by the sailing committee and the club itself. And I think we're making improvements in those because we've got the highest number of entrants in that series. So lots of things like that going particularly well. There's always stuff to do at this place though. There's always something.
Yes. And you mentioned the two-handers. I mean, I think that's been well accepted here. I mean, it's obviously well accepted in Europe and
Yeah.
France, of course, but it seems to have integrated well into our regattas, hasn't it?
Yeah, look, it was definitely hard to get it across the line at the start, and then we had that, we had to draw back and allow it to be more assimilated because of, I think there was too much change. It concerned people, but I think now we can also see the benefit of having two-handed racing because it's such a big part of our fleets, and they have their own regattas and races as well. It's brought a lot of great boats into the sport. You've got some really exciting campaigns out there. So I'm really happy to see that come through. And that sort of that was really at the very I was in the chairmanship role of the sailing committee then, had to hear both sides a lot. But I was always very pro two-handed, and I'm glad to see we've landed where we have. It was great, the review that was done of it. It really, I think, gave everyone, a feeling that it had been looked at as detail, from the club's perspective as well. Yeah.
And again, just turning to Europe, I guess the foiling boats. What do you make of the foilers, the mockers, and those boats that have got the foils?
Yeah,
going to get one?
Oh no, I mean they're definitely not. I think they're probably outside of the budget of veterinarians.
Yeah.
I mean, they're exciting to see them sail and race. It's just incredible what the technology of sailing is able to do. I'm looking forward to the America's Cup coming up and so forth as well. Yeah.
Well, Sam, as we finish up here, tell us quickly, and it's probably hard to do quickly, someone that's watching this that might be campaigning a boat for Hobart, what would be some advice to say a newcomer that's maybe embarking on his first or second race to do well in a Hobart race? Just what's needed to be done?
Yeah, I think one of the very first steps, you need to have someone who's going to help you go on that campaign, like a tactician that's able to manage the campaign. And even if it's not, it doesn't have to necessarily be Grand Prix, but you need someone else to help you. It's got to be a team effort. The other thing, and it's all about people, a lot of this, to get a reasonable result in a Hobart, you need to finish, you need to have a boat that's reliable, and you need to have trialled it and raced it and campaigned it to be able to get to the Hobart in good shape. So I'd say all that, the lead up to the racing events and leading up, and then to do races, I think you need to do training. And that goes into your safety as well, and how the boat's going to perform in different circumstances, different situations. So those are the sort of the pathway that I would say is the very first starting steps. You can go into how you're going to get your rating to where you want it, and sail charts and crossovers and what sails are on the boat and all the technical things like that. But starting point is getting the crew, and the starting point for a crew is training, is competing in events and having good leadership. And so a second in command, a tactician or a sailing master alongside a skipper is my
and
view.
Doing as much sailing as you can.
Yeah. Time on the water is always so valuable.
Yeah. Well, Sam, thank you for your time. Congratulations so far on your career. Hopefully there's more victories to come.
Thank you.
And I think thank you for the time you put into the club. A lot of it, people don't see, as you said, at the back end. A lot of people put a lot of time in, and I know you've done that. So well done on that. Good luck in the next Hobart race, and maybe 2 in a row.
Well, thanks very much.
Good on you. Good luck.
Thanks, Shippers.